Paul,
Hello, Sam.
hello. How are we, first and foremost?
Good, I'm all right, thank you. Not bad. Yourself?
Good. Yeah, very good, thank you. Very good.
Good.
So obviously we're sat here today because, well, we've had plenty of good conversations over the past year or two.
We have.
And I know plenty about you, your story and well, why you are the man that you are today and why Fluere came into existence. But I think we wanted to just talk about that in a little bit more detail for the purposes of really kind of highlighting, I think, some of the kind of perceptions that exist in industry today around, what we should be looking to do to bring ourselves as manufacturers and SME manufacturers in particular into, the modern day.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's strip it right back and talk about Paul Molloy in his earliest context. So I'm going to pass the mic over to you. And do you want to kind of just tell me about what helped shape you? The Paul that exists today that sits here in front of me in D-Bar's factory.
Yeah.
Wonderful place. Yeah. Talk to me about the early days.
Early days. Sure. I've always had a strong work ethic. I think drilled into me by mostly my dad. Weekends spent helping in the garden, cleaning cars, doing all the rest of it, and all the good stuff. I did manufacturing systems as a degree, and that was showing you, how manufacturing works and how different processes work, and that point of view. I think it was probably during my degree when I realised that I was a very process-orientated person in terms of how I thought about anything. So, and then reflecting back on that, I could see that in everything I did when I was young, So, if I was ever doing any repeated tasks, I was always trying to think, how can I do this quicker, but without necessarily working harder. And I was always looking at the steps that we're going through from something, always. So it's not necessarily how a machine would work, but more how the work was done to make things or to produce things or whatever, a service you might provide and that type of thing. So
even before you did your degree and you found yourself falling in love with systems and processes, did you find yourself as an early engineer kind of wanting to try and, did you go into engineering because you wanted to fix things? Has it always been, have you always been a hands-on kind of guy, like you say, from helping your dad out to, did you know that was kind of the path that was for you? Right.
Again, like a lot of youngsters probably today, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my career, my way forward when I was younger. Engineering was probably the thing with processes in it and moving things and making things was the area, and maths that I liked was probably suited me more. That's where I started. I did a BTEC course in general engineering to start with, where you would see machines like this that we're looking at now, and you'd be making things on a lathe and a milling machine and all that good stuff, learning about electronics. So it was a great overall course, but because I didn't know what I wanted to do, I kept it general to start with, and that's how it was. But it all was, I suppose, orientated around processes, doing things, making things, seeing things, that type of thing.
It's fascinating because I sit here opposite you as well, being completely honest, as a guy that, I'm the complete contrast. I'm useless with my hands, I think it's a real eye-opener, I think, for many, like it would have been for myself. When I came through school, I didn't even know a career in manufacturing engineering kind of has the kind of prospects that it does. So I think even just kind of reflecting on that early stage, I think it's great that you knew what you was kind of going into, that that's what you wanted to be. Because I don't think many don't. Many kids coming through school don't know what they want to do, who they want to be. And I think it's a shame that there's not more done to kind of highlight, exactly what kind of prospects do exist in industry.
Definitely, and there's a lot of talk, as we've spoken about and others do, around manufacturing in particular, and it's not always seen as a glamorous career for a lot of youngsters, and yet actually it's a highly exciting career, can be. and it offers so much diversity of jobs and roles and responsibilities in that industry. It's a massive opportunity, but I don't think it, like you said, it's not made enough of to really emphasise that and to promote and encourage youngsters into the sector.
And it's changed a lot since you came into industry back in the 90s.
Back in 1992 was when I first started working in a Yorkshire manufacturing company. So yeah, quite a long time since now ago. And I was very, very fortunate because my very first job was actually working on the business and not in it. So I was employed as a process improvement, engineer, if you like, type of role, and I was allowed free rein initially to go off and look at the whole business in its entirety as a just graduated student, wet behind the ears still in lots of ways. And came back extremely excitedly to the MDs, two joint MDs, and said, "Wow, we can revolutionise this place. It's amazing what we can do." And I think for me that was a real penny dropping moment where I discovered, even within the first few months of starting that job, that was my forte, and that's what I love to do, and that's what I got a buzz out of. Don't ask me to drive anywhere because I'm useless at it. I wouldn't know how to get from A to B. But when it comes down to process improvement and process understanding and how to optimize operations, it comes natural to me, a lot of it. So that's where it started.
So on the note of those early days, when you were first starting out as an engineer, I know you said obviously you had the joy of being able to come in, just have that kind of top level view across the business of what can be improved. But what did good look like then?
Back then?
Back in the 90s, yeah.
In manufacturing, it's a really good question, and I probably didn't even, back then there was lots of different elements to the manufacturing business where you would probably be accepted as good. And that today or through the understanding and learning of what we do with lean principles and operation good best practice and all these different things, you would say they're not good practice at all. But it was things like customers might grumble, but if we didn't lose them, that's okay. Lots of work in progress in the factory was actually seen as a good thing because it meant that we must be really busy. And it actually contributes to making, on paper, to make it look like a healthier business, even though, it's chaos on the shop floor or whatever it might have been. As long as all of the products were made by the end of the month, so it's normally like a big rush on at the end of the month leading up to it, to come on, we'll get all this stuff out now, we've got to do it. Nothing about, are we hitting the right pace, along the way, then that was good. And also I think one of the biggest things I've learned over the years for me is around some of the metrics, so efficiency, the way it's measured back then, meant that we got an estimated time for making our products. And if we're clocking on the actual time that we're making it in that time, then that was good. And that's what the finance people in the business wanted to see and make sure that was happening. That told you nothing about the journey those products were going on. And they could have been sat there for months, going from step A to step B and step C. But as long as the actual time taken at the time was equal to what we thought it was going to be, that's fine. I think on the people side, it was definitely more of a forum approach. If team leaders told the teams what to do and how to do it, and as long as they did what they were told, then that was good. And I think all of the leadership, the senior management team in particular overall, would think that they've got to do all the thinking for the business, for the way forward and progress and where we go from here. And don't get me wrong, I worked for an incredible business back then, so I am not in any way saying that, trying to criticise the business. It was an amazing business with two joint amazing MDs that I'll never forget, and my time there was incredible. But still, these are just habits people probably didn't realise were going on that didn't actually lead and drive your view of the business in what good looks like now today, if you reflected back on it, of what we could have measured and done differently.
So the changes that you oversaw and you recommended there at your first company coming in, it feels like to me that wasn't the norm at the time. So, you know, if you was to kind of try and sum up industry at that time and, you know, cross tiers.
Yeah.
I don't know how big of a business it was that you was at to begin with, but yeah, talk me through your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, we, my view of that, again, on reflecting back now in particular, is that I do think there are tiers within the manufacturing sector in the UK, for example.
In terms of adoption?
Adoption and best practice and operational excellence, which is a phrase that most people would relate to. So world-class manufacturers are in that top tier, which will be automotive companies who have driven a lot of that thinking and behaviours, and you know, and where they're going with it. And they absolutely are excellent in what they do in terms of the lead times, production of their work, the performance overall, the customer service from that perspective. I think underneath that then there's another tier where the manufacturing companies get it, and the leadership is driving through the right principles and the right way of working and engaging the people along the way with that, and putting continuous improvement in place so that over the years they really can see a shift in performance and what the whole business looks like. But underneath then that second tier, there's quite a big drop off and a big cliff where I would put a lot probably, and you know, in some ways you might say it's a sad thing to say, but in other ways it's also right now a huge opportunity, right? Because it's maybe 80% of manufacturing companies, if that's an SME business or even a bigger business, it doesn't necessarily have to be the size of the company, would fall into that third tier, which means they don't get it, they're not thinking or understanding for whatever reason, and able to drive the right way to get as highly productive and efficient and engaging with the workforce as possible along the way.
What is it?
So what don't they get? Well, going back to what good looks like and what it really is. And why don't they get it? A lot of businesses still run a lot of traditional metrics and measures and ways of thinking. The fundamental in my view, is, and this is where there's a big mismatch, is that it is all about the performance, and what you're trying to achieve is all about the product flow. So the number one priority in the factory is, as soon as I start manufacturing a product, that product never stops on its journey. And I'm not talking about the physical movement around the layout element of where it goes to. I'm talking the time and not having any delay whatsoever. And a lot of people would relate that to continuous flow, which is talked about again. But I think it's a harder concept for a lot of people to get their heads around.
Yeah.
So if that is priority, and that's everything you do is to try and achieve the continuous flow of all of your products, one after another, what is secondary then, and this is where a lot of people will be maybe surprised or challenge it, is the utilization of people and the utilization of machines and equipment. Because at the moment, and going back 30 years and up till now, a lot of people still focus as a priority on the utilization of people and machines. And if the people are utilized 100% and the machines are utilized 100%, then we're all good, aren't we? But we're not, because that doesn't tell you the real tale of what's going on. And productivity, which we all know when we talk about all the time, is an outlier of performance, poor performance in the UK against Europe, for example. Productivity is all about finished goods throughput. How many finished goods can I make and produce every single day, every week, every month through the factory, utilizing the people and the resources we've got. Increasing productivity means I'm increasing the throughput of the finished goods. So therefore, those finished goods have to flow extremely well through the factory with no delays. And that is the pinnacle, because if you achieve high productivity, typically the same proportion of improvement in productivity versus efficiency is somewhere near 2.5 to 3 times the impact financially for the business, and normally drives a much better customer service for the customers. So for example, by the fact you're flowing your products, you're also radically reducing your lead times in your factory, and you're radically reducing your lead times to the customers and having a better overall customer service, and ideally even then starting to grab a bigger market share from what you're doing. That's the ultimate goal that most people should be aiming for. And again, going back to giving you a swap over of traditional thinking versus actual thinking, a lot of people will manage their capacity by dividing how many hours they've got available with the people and the machines in their factory by the hours they think it's going to take, pure machining and assembly and manual hours it's going to take to make the products. And if I divide the hours available by the hours to make the products and it equals 1, right, then I'm saying I'm fine. I can make all of that. And that is a fallacy. That does never work, because it doesn't take into account all sorts of key concepts and thinking. What's real true capacity is how many finished products can I manufacture every day and every week and every month. That's true capacity.
Throughput.
Throughput.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Output, throughput, as it's called. So, yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I mean, it's fascinating. So yeah, to reflect that tier system. Okay. So yeah, you've got your likes of Toyota, at the top, obviously.
Yeah.
Still, the Toyota principles are seen as kind of best in class, world class today.
Yeah. The whole of Lean is based on a Toyota production system.
And again, similarly, that production flow, they've got nailed probably better than anyone. The principles behind it, underpinning that production flow, seamless. But also adoption of technology. They seem to get that the stage of adoption just right, in that they're happy for others, and this is true to, I believe, who they are today, in that they're happy for others to trial other technologies coming into industry first. They don't want to be the first, and they're not too late to the market in order to be able to take advantage of them on site, and reap the benefits.
Yeah.
But they hit just the right, because it's a bell curve, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they seem to be just on the right part of that curve. Now, so I'm just thinking of that top tier and what we can learn from that top tier, because as you say, ultimately, there's one tier below that, which are then they're the guys that understand the need to strive for operational excellence. The need to invest in new technology, but they want to see the proofs in the pudding.
Yeah.
First. So they're not quite as, they're slightly more risk averse, but they understand the bigger picture, and that they can get more out of the factory, more out of the people by doing that. Now, but looking at what can we learn from that top tier, anything that could be extracted from there to the 80% below, technology adoption alone, that's a separate point. But talking processes and production flow, what for you is kind of that first win that these 80% can get, where you, from your experience and in your early days, where you saw it was clear something wasn't right.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're asking is what are the fundamental things that manufacturers should be thinking of doing in this 80% third tiered area, where they've got so much opportunity to improve. And this comes to the crux of it. I honestly believe, and we have demonstrated and show all the time, that you can apply all this thinking and principles and get tremendous performance uplift and productivity from it. Huge leaps and bounds. We're not talking like small improvements, incremental step change, but over time you can get absolute dramatical improvements. through continuous improvement along the way, step by step. There's some really key important things that we need to understand that don't happen. And I think where we go right, and you said, why don't people get it? I mean, we've done surveys before and asked people, asked the owners and the managers, the MDs of SME manufacturing businesses, who knows lean in the room, right? And we get a lot of hands going up, but then we start challenging that, go, right, who really, really knows lean in terms of lots of these techniques and methods? And most importantly, how do you combine using these principles together seamlessly? Because that's where the big wow factor starts to happen. It's not just these individual pocketed techniques and methods, it's bringing the whole thing together. And a lot of those owners and MDs admitted that they didn't really know it to that level. And you know, everyone knows about 6S or 5S, whichever way you call it, for an organised workplace. And don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic method, technique, massive buy-in and employee involvement, and it means that we can be organised, efficient, and so much more benefits from it. But that's one single individual technique from tens and tens and tens of techniques and methods. But there's some, I would call them foundational principles that need to be followed if you're ever going to start to be really, really shift your performance. I honestly, on my observations and judgment, I would honestly believe that about 80% of the UK manufacturing companies, their factories are set up functionally, for example. That means that they've got groups of machines or processes and assemblies that do the same function in that area, and then they're in blocks of functions dotted around the factory. Now it's known, I mean, that's a traditional layout of most factories. You know, the revolutionary bit that was done 30 years ago for me, in my first company, for example, but still a revolution for a lot of those manufacturers today, will be creating proper manufacturing, product grouped cells, manufacturing cells, where you're breaking down the functional thing altogether and you're moving machines and people and all the equipment that will make a group of products in the smallest area possible, not squeezing people in. I mean, it's still got to be health and safety right and everything else, but the smallest area possible to make those products. So we're talking about trying to shift the majority of manufacturers to do that still today, right? 80% of them, in my gut feel. And without that, I have followed, to go back to what you asked me earlier about what's driven me a lot. I was taught and shown quite a while ago, a key principle understanding is do the right things and then do those things right, okay? And what I do still think overall we're not doing is that manufacturers are not doing the right things if they want to get highly efficient, highly productive, and have the best business they can. They're not doing those right things first, like an example of creating manufacturing cells. So if they try and improve the way they work in a functional area, they can put as much effort in, they'll never get anywhere near the benefit and the ways of working and the outcomes that they would if they did the right thing first, which is to produce those cells. And then doing those things right means that we're going to design those cells, and we're going to get that understood, and we're going to optimize it in the best way possible. That's doing the thing right once you're doing the right thing. But that applies to so many different principles in manufacturing, and in lean is a great example. Lean is quite counterintuitive for lots of people, and again, that's never talked about. Standard cost accounting has got huge amounts of elements which are almost contradictory and push against lean, or vice versa. Now, standard cost accounting is still used today, as it has for decades and decades. There's not as many businesses that understand that challenge and work and operate in a different way to get the right outcome. So we're talking real fun. They're blockers to why maybe manufacturing isn't moved forward from that perspective. And I think, sorry, recapping to your question about technology and all the rest of it, I mean, the technology is moving so fast these days, and there's so many opportunities for manufacturing companies to grab that technology and harness it and make things out of it. So better machines, AI, big data, Industry 4 that's coming with all of it, robots, the whole works. It's all great stuff. I'm not against it at all. But what I really see a lot of all the time is everyone's talking and excited about these sexy machines and this sexy way of doing it all. And people tend to have a mindset that makes it easy for them to want to grab that. And what's missing is they haven't put these fundamental foundations in place in their business operations and their business processes first. Because they might get some benefit from that technology, but they wouldn't get anywhere near the benefit if it's all still worked in a bit of an ad hoc way, and they haven't, for example, created cells, and they're still working in a functional area. So doing the right things for me first would say to them, understand what we mean to fundamentally streamline all of your processes, and the motto of working smarter, not harder, 100% applies. And we mean it, when we go into work with companies, we're not trying to get people to shave off 30 seconds from a task or an activity they're doing in a factory. We don't want them to sweat more, and we're not trying to get them to run from point A to point B just to get there faster so we can do something a bit faster. 80-90% of the total time of the products in the factory, they are sat still doing nothing. But going back to it, that's what we've just said is the most important thing. It's getting the product and the throughput as streamlined and flowing as much as possible. So even without shaving any time off how long it takes you today to make anything, streamlining and doing that and not having the delays will have a massive, massive impact.
So yeah, we've talked about your earliest days,
Yeah.
how you've identified what good looks like on the shop floor then. Clearly a different mindset to what I think it's fair to say most had in industry.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to kind of open it up to you to talk us through your journey from there. So yeah, from the point of leaving your first company and moving on, talk me through the journey for Paul Molloy from there then.
Okay. I left that business, which it was a £26 million business, SME manufacturer. I worked there for 7 years, 7 fantastic, amazing years. And I would honestly say that set the grounding for my learning. I was allowed to sit there and read Reinventing the Factory, book 1 and 2, by the way, through Arthur Andersen Consultancy from 1970s, written, and apply it all to the business. Wow. I mean, that's the type of the learning in the early days.
Yeah.
And that's where I really got the grasp and understanding of good practice and what it really means, and then went and applied it. In 7 years in my first business, we went from being a team, I went from a team of 1 to a team of 5 in 12 months because we were getting that much impact and working with all the different teams in the different areas. We went from the factory, in the shop floor, from the machine shop, assembly, paint plant, all that good stuff, up to the full assembly, which is pretty big operation for a massive assembly line and streamlining all those things, through to design for manufacture, how you design your products to get an impact, through to the whole supply chain and quality and everything that goes with it. So it was a massive learning ground for me.
Yeah.
My progression then in that business really couldn't go any, although I loved the business to bits, couldn't go much further. I left, and then I actually got a job working for a big corporate manufacturing company. And I worked there for 4 or 5 years in total, but that's where I also got my full qualifying grounding in Lean Six Sigma.
Okay.
It was an American-owned business, so I was shipped off to Houston 1 week every month for 4 or 5 months to do my training, which was not bad for anybody. So I was very fortunate to get all that real training and development to build on what I already had. And then it was about how do we apply the same principles there, which we were doing. But from manufacturing in my first 15, 16 years, I also then worked for a couple of companies in the service sector as well, as a process improvement lead, applying it in the service sector. And then before starting Fluere, it was 5 years in one of the big 4 consultancies. So I got my consultancy experience from that, where we went off and we applied lean techniques at the House of Commons, universities, all sorts of different areas and situations, as well as lean, as well as manufacturing businesses.
Wow. Yeah. So there's a lot that kind of went into the inception of Fluere really there. You've got your SME manufacturing experience, your, like I say, your corporate level,
Yeah.
independently UK owned to American owned.
Yeah.
So lots of different flavours on the shop floor, I can imagine, that's come out of that. And as you say, then into the service provider.
Yeah.
Yeah, and through to Fluere being born. So why? Why did you start Fluere?
I started Fluere because I wanted to go back into manufacturing industry in terms of where I worked and added value. We were getting fantastic feedback in the consultancy business from all the work I was doing, all the process improvement work we were doing. And I thought, why aren't I doing this for myself with my own team? That was a fundamental thing. And it's a passion about going back into manufacturing, about really wanting to help influence the productivity side ultimately, and why aren't all these manufacturers still harnessing a lot more of it? So I think there was a huge opportunity to do that. So that's how that's why I started Fluere as a business. After spending 2 months thinking of the name, instead of calling it Paul Molloy Limited or whatever, Fluere stands for to flow in Latin. And ultimately that's what it's all about. And I thought, that's what we want to promote and drive through manufacturing companies so they can get the biggest impactful gains they can possibly get.
So it's all about production flow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And office flow.
And office flow.
If you think about it, it's the end-to-end process can go anywhere from order inquiry coming in, all the way through to dispatch, customer delivery, installation, even invoicing coming back in, the whole payment stream.
Yeah.
So real throughput, Sam. Real throughput is from receipt of order all the way through receiving the cash back from your customer. That's real throughput. Yeah. And the more you can get that going, the better. And for anybody, which is perfect. So any and all of the above is under scrutiny when we're looking to help improve a business.
And do you feel, is that message better received? Is it more welcome today? 30 years on from identifying that as the, one of the kind of key areas for, I suppose, opportunity for manufacturers to be getting, becoming more profitable ultimately, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? So
yeah. We, again, like we were saying earlier, we have customers who get it quickly and understand it up front. We're having those very initial discussions about how Fluere can support them. And when they do get it, they're open arms and they really want to support, and we create a real true partnership, which is fantastic. And we really go places and make tremendous difference. Unfortunately, a lot of businesses still don't get it. They don't get the concepts. I mean, if we said, look, we're going to come in and help you sort your flow out, that phrase in itself, people don't really understand what that means and what flow of what exactly you're talking about, because they haven't got all of that real grounding in these lean principles and everything that goes with it that makes a difference. So it can take some explanation to understand, and sometimes a leap of faith as well.
Going to play devil's advocate for you here.
Okay.
So, we say, unfortunately, we are in a position where there's still many that don't see it as a priority for the business, investing in lean, investing in their principles and systems and mindset, I'm an SME manufacturer. I've got wage bills up here that I can't deal with. I'm time poor. I've got Trump deciding that he's going to potentially, bring in a new tariff at any given time. That with all these headaches, why should they be? Why should I put investing in lean, at the top of this pile, or at least higher?
Yeah, I mean that's a really good question. And don't get me wrong, I really sympathise with the pressures manufacturing's under right now, and for many decades, not just years. It really is. Limited skills, trying to develop and trying to attract the right people, like we said earlier. Tariffs, compliance. There's so many different pressures on them. But there's a key important question for everyone to ask, and it doesn't matter if you're a manufacturer, I mean for any business. How many years have we been existing for? Now, if this year is a repeat of last year, and last year's a repeat of the year before, then you've only had 1 year effectively that you've been in business for. That's a good mindset for people to think about in a constructive way of challenging where they want to go to. So improvement is important. So forget the fact we're talking about these principles of lean or anything else. Generally, improving your business should be seen as the priority for anybody. Otherwise, you don't go anywhere. And what happens is we all end up being busy fools. We all end up stressed, with the whole workforce, and we all end up making very small margins, ultimately. And it's about how can we harness everything that we've currently got without spending a huge amount more on equipment and everything else. Because in 12 years of Fluere, we've never once told any client they've had to go out and spend major capital, and yet we've got gains of between 30 and 80% increased productivity by streamlining processes alone and getting people to think differently and engaging with the workforce. So people need to really ask themselves how old their business really is, and are they making real step change every single year, and the continuous improvement, because that's what it's all about. And that's an option to either continuously to improve or not to improve.
So for any manufacturer watching this now here today, and they will even acknowledge themselves they might have a slightly outdated shop floor.
Yeah.
Where should they start? Where should they look to begin with for, top level? What should they be thinking?
That's a really good question, Sam. I would say this because it's part of our improvement approach, but they need to start with clarity. And what we mean by clarity is that they understand where their real problems and issues are, and they're quantified. They get down to the root causes. But more importantly than that then is that they have a knowledge base to understand what improvements and techniques they need to use, and the frontal way, going back to what we said earlier about do the right thing, doing the right things, and then doing those things right, and to form that improvement roadmap.
No, that's really useful. I think clarity is a big thing. It gives SMEs in particular a starting point. To kind of bring it to a close, what's the most important thing that we've not spoken about in this conversation?
The one thing we haven't really touched on is people. And that is an enormous part of change. So change management, understanding what that means, and understanding how to transforming the way you work over time is not a one-off project. It's instilling a continuous improvement mindset for everybody, and creating new ways of working and behaving that sticks with the business going forward, and it just gets better and better. I think on the people side in particular though, how people need to come along the journey as well, right from day one. Involving people, empowering people is crucial. Otherwise, anything that's trying to improvements to be made will not stick and survive.
I think that's a really, really important point. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's the people that make the businesses grow. It's the people that make the businesses a success. So you've got to start with the people.
And a lot of people, a lot of the leadership team find that challenging. They find it actually fine. I'm talking here. I'm serious, right? I'm talking owners and MDs of businesses that we work with and others find it hard. They're nervous and anxious about engaging with their staff, getting opinions from their staff, getting them involved in the way forward, and really communicating them with them as one single team.
But worth saying at the same time, a lot that are also all too well aware of the opportunities that do exist on site, recognise that, and they're the ones that ultimately, end up reaping the benefits. They're the ones that kick on, they invest, they believe in their people, they put them through training like the kind that you offer, and the results typically will speak for themselves. You've got companies like D-Bar where we are today, they're doing it. I think, what did you say? They saw an increase in productivity of, what was it now, 30, 40%?
35%.
35%.
Essentially. Yeah, I mean, the guys here making a cleat, we took the factory lead time from raw material to pack from an average of 2.5 weeks to 1 hour, 42 minutes, just by streamlining the processes.
Yeah.
And what was a proud moment is when the whole of that team were involved in the process, stood up in front of the management team and said, we're not working harder, we're just working smarter. We says it all. So the good news is there is just so much abundance of opportunity for manufacturers to be able to harness a lot of what they've already got and to really dramatically increase their performance.
And there's probably never been a more important time than now. what with everything that they're staring down the barrel of.
Yeah.
It's difficult out there.
Yeah.
So
It is.
yeah, I really hope that this message is received.
It's great.
I really, really appreciate your time, Paul. It's been really insightful, to be honest. I think it's good to understand the story behind the man that set up Fluere. And I think there's a lot for us to take seriously. Manufacturers need it now. So thank you.
No, thank you, Sam. I really appreciate the opportunity to get another voice out there, the passion for manufacturing, for all of the businesses to increase their productivity as much as possible. If there's any penny dropping messages from what we've discussed that people can see and can take forward, that's fantastic.